This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Does everyone else have this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not to be trusted.
All right. It is 6:01 p.m. and I will now call to order the June 13th meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. This meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted in person and simultaneously via remote participation online to the greatest extent possible. Specific information or general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right or requirement to attend this meeting can be found below. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, both the in-person and online meetings will not be restarted, and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. We are recording. Are there any public concerns or non-agenda items?
I've not received any.
All right. Public hearings. Our first public hearing is continued from May 23rd, 2022. Request for determination of applicability filed by Heritage Land Surveying and Engineering on behalf of Our Lady of the Valley at 109 Everett Street, map 146, lot 1, for expansion of the existing cemetery. Do we have someone here to speak on this matter?
Yes, Mark Reed from Heritage Land Surveying and Engineering. Tom Brown is also here tonight from Our Lady of the Valley. So if you remember, where to speak.
Oh, there's no speaker. You're good. I got it over here now.
Okay.
Yeah.
As you remember from the last meeting, we were reviewing a proposed new expansion of St. Bridget's Cemetery on Everett Street to a parcel of land to the east of the existing cemetery that currently exists on Everett Street. One of the things that was requested of us is we do some additional soil borings in the stormwater basins. So I have done that. I did 2 hand augering test holes. I got an extra copy. Within each one of the 3 basins on the property in itself. I know that the last meeting also, we were trying to wait for comments from Dan. And I understand he's running a little late tonight too for the project in itself. This is a set of revised plans that show the location of the test pits for the commission. So there's 2, 2, and 2. So the reports, I was able to go down 3 feet with my auger, and I took pictures associated with each one of those locations.
Did Dan see this report?
That I don't know. He had access to all the files, but I don't know if he got that. I don't know if you want me to relay Dan's comments now.
Sure, yeah, no, that's fine.
Great,
So,
Cassie.
Yeah, so his main comment was that in the stormwater handbook on the volume 2, chapter 2 there, and that's in that binder too if you want it. But volume 2, chapter 2 for the best manager practices for infiltration basins, there is a table which indicates that at a minimum there is a setback from, if the slope is 15% or greater, it should be at least a minimum of 50 feet away, 50.
If it's what or greater?
The slope is 15% or greater. I don't know what the slopes are, if you were able to find that.
So yes, Kathy did call me on that, and I have looked at it. And we are in compliance on the stormwater basin number 1 being over 50 feet. The difference in elevation, my notes here, on basin 1 in 50 feet is 7-foot difference. So at 15%, 7.5 feet is within 50 feet.
Okay.
So 15% is 15 feet difference in elevation in 100 feet. Okay, so in 50, it's half of that, which is 7.5 feet. On the other two basins, we are short of that.
Sorry, Mark, so you're saying you are at 15% there, but you're back 50 feet,
Yes, we're back 50 feet.
but it is at 15%, so.
So what I did was to ensure that we had 50 feet. We have over 50 feet from the top of the steep slope back to the basin, and looked at the elevation of the full basin and the grade, the existing grade down here, and we're at 7 foot difference in 50.
Okay.
So we're in compliance with that for basin number 1, 1, 2, 3 basin. The other two basins are a little bit shy of that. Basin 2 is only 20 feet difference. And this one's even less, about 15 feet. So to comply with that regulation, we may have to, or we would have to look at redesigning the location of these two stormwater basins. My other point is that the runoff and the volume of stormwater from the 16-foot wide pavement is very low and minimal. And we have all these long grass water quality swales that DEP also says that you can't count for volume, which to me, that's a lot of volume. And so that by the time the stormwater gets all the way down here, it's going to infiltrate into the ground a considerable amount. So these are two of the smaller little areas here for that. So the volumes that we have for runoff for this project, because it's only 16.5 foot wide pavement, because right now it's grass and it's going to be grass in the future, is minimal. So if the commission wants us to comply with that regulation, then we would have to look at changing it out and moving them further back on the property. One of my thoughts is to look at taking this one out completely and get the grade changed slightly, right? So that this one becomes a little larger. And
Because you can move that middle one back.
correct,
But this one, you got not much room.
pretty tight, pretty tight. And the grades through here are, it's all 1%, 2% slopes. So it's doable to try to look at changing that out. To make it a little bit, instead of that way, okay, make it that way. Change it out, so it is possible.
Jesse, did Dan have any further comments along with that?
No, that was the main comment.
Yeah, Mark, I'm not overly concerned about the stormwater at this site in a normal condition, but what worries me is a big storm event and a slope failure and sending a lot of material down into our resource areas. So I think we do want to stay, knowing Easthampton slopes and the materials that they're built up, I think it would be in everyone's best interest for the long run if we looked at some alternatives. Do others have thoughts? I would wish that Dan was here to get that input, and if you want to wait until Dan
Sure.
is
Sure,
here, even if that means waiting for another meeting to get more input, we're more than happy to continue again, but
Sure.
from
Well,
my knowledge, that would be my inclination.
I think if that was comment that Dan had and something that we could accommodate, I think we would just do the revision and bring it back here next meeting.
Okay.
Okay,
Would make more sense instead of waiting until the next meeting and then,
great.
Sure.
I don't mind waiting a little. I'm not sure how late he's gonna be.
I
I don't think he was sure either.
Yeah,
so-
yeah, if he comes at all, so it's hard
If
to
he
say.
comes at all,
I know,
okay.
sorry, yeah, so.
Yeah, right. So I know I have another item on the agenda, so
That's true.
to see, see if he does by chance. But I think in reality, we can make those modifications and come back on the next meeting.
Okay.
With that.
Which is the 27th.
Yes, yeah, 27.
And other than that, I think that was the only,
I think so, yeah, those are the only outstanding
unless there's
questions.
some other comments from the commission members.
I have a note about revisiting something in the buffer, but I honestly can't read my note. I don't know if anyone remembers what we had discussed about the buffers.
Well, early on, I think we were talking about in past history that had some issues. So
Jumping things over there, which is,
that might have been, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Because we have no work in the 50-foot buffer zone. The majority of the stormwater basins are outside. This one's almost 100% outside the 100-foot buffer zone. This one's just a tip of it. And then if we relocate this one, it's probably going to be outside the buffer zone for stormwater basin. So.
I don't remember anything else besides giving.
I don't either.
Great. So procedurally, if we are hoping that Dan might show up yet tonight, I feel like we should not continue the
Not yet.
meeting or continue the hearing yet. Can we just put it on pause and come back? We'll need to come back and continue it at some
Yes, you
point.
just have to not forget to
Okay.
officially continue it.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can put a little pause
That's fine.
and then take another item out of agenda.
Sure, yeah, we
Okay.
can do that. Or I noticed we have another filing coming up after us, whatever we need. We can work on it.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Oh, and this is the other.
Oh, but you're done.
Okay.
All right. Our next agenda item is a public meeting, request for determination of applicability filed by Conservation Works on behalf of Lathrop Communities at 100 Bassett Cove Drive, map 104, lot 2, for trail improvements, including bridges. Does someone like to speak to that item?
We do.
Yes, my name is Holly Picolet. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Lathrop Communities, and I'm here to represent the organization, but I'm here to pass it off to our wonderful residents, being spoken for by Lucy Baruch. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly. Yes, as Holly said, my name is Lucy Baruch, and I'm a co-convener of the Trails team of the Residents Land Conservation Committee here at Lathrop. And there have been trails on our 175-acre campus for decades. And this spring, we've been working closely with Pete Westover of Conservation Works to explore how we might improve our trails by reducing or eliminating wetland impacts and making our trails safer and more accessible. Pete, who has decades of experience designing, maintaining, and improving trails throughout the state, was formerly the longtime conservation director for the town of Amherst. A co-founder of the Massachusetts Society of Municipal Conservation Professionals, Pete was a longtime advisor to the Kestrel Land Trust and serves on the Mass Board of the Conservation Law Foundation. In addition to Holly, Pete, and myself, we may also turn to fellow resident Barbara Walbert. I see that other Lathrop residents are present at this time as well. Lynn Howe, Kamala Brush, Mary Alice Wilson, and Sharon Grace. And we're pleased to be here with you. And I'm going to pass it over to Pete.
Great, thanks, Lucy. And I think Cassie can show the PowerPoint. We've got about 15 slides to show you the project. It's really been a great team to work with, and Lucy and Barbara know every inch of this property. And it's, in my mind, it's one of the best examples in the state of a retirement center with a beautiful environment, but also a really impressive trail system. So the idea is here for this project to more or less bring the trails up to date and and make sure that the wetland impacts of the trail and the walkers, of whom there are many at Lathrop, is minimized. So if you can show the first slide.
Yes, I am on the first slide, if everyone can see it.
Sorry.
The
I'm
next
on
slide.
Okay.
Oh,
Gotcha.
yeah, the second slide. You're right. Okay, so if you all can see this map, it's a large property, and I'm sure you're familiar with it. At the top is the Northampton Easthampton town line. And so, of course, this project is entirely in the Easthampton portion of Lathrop's land. To the far west is Bassett Brook. And then you can see in the yellow dots the trail system. There are seasonal trails that are used only in dry weather that are in green. And then as you'll see when I present the statistics in a minute, the idea here is going to be to move half a dozen sections of trail to higher locations to basically get them out of the wetlands. And that's where Ward Smith, who did an initial delineation in 2017 and then came back this year to flag the wetland edge for each of the work sites. His flags are what guided us in planning to move these sections of trails. So they're up and out of BBW and into drier land. And as you probably know, one thing that happens when a trail goes through a wet section is that it gets wider and wider because people try to avoid the mud in the middle of the trail. So if you can go to the next slide. So as I said, the overall goal is going to be to reduce the impact on the wetlands on the property. The scope is going to include half a dozen relocations totaling more than 1,500 linear feet. So that's where the wetter sections of trail will be rerouted around and the old routes will be closed. And more than 1,600 linear feet of trail will be just closed because in some cases they go around the edge of a field in a very wet site, or in other cases we're not able to continue them without wetland impact. And then the third part is that at 6 different locations, we propose to do what my firm has done in many places around the state, and I'll show you some pictures, is to build what's called bog bridging. You're probably familiar with it, and I'll show you some pictures of how that works. And then we mentioned that Ward Smith has been on the site a couple of times, and you probably know his reputation. He's well respected as a wetland scientist. So next slide. Just an idea of how many people at Lathrop get out and use these beautiful trails in all seasons. And of course, in sometimes of the year, the trails are wetter than others. And that's where we really have intended to make life easier for walkers by getting them out of the wettest areas. Okay. So I won't show you all of the work sites. There are too many to grind through, but these are good examples, I think, of the kinds of things that we're proposing. So in this case, this is down near the south boundary. And what you see in the foreground is a wet and muddy spot that, of course, is wetter in the spring. And the idea here will be to install 12 linear feet of bog bridging. And then beyond the bog bridging, the trail will move to the left, probably 10 feet. And for a stretch of 40 or 50 feet will be in that new location, and the old location will be closed. And this is a somewhat sensitive site. There's a vernal pool off to the right, and Lathrop folks have been very respectful of that pool for years and have made sure that people walkers have no impact on the pool. Okay. So some examples of bog bridging. We've built these in many spots and always with Conservation Commission approval. The upper one we did this spring in Barrie at Insight Meditation Society. The upper right is actually 440 feet of new bridging that we put in last fall at Whately Center Woods for Kestrel Land Trust. And then there's a wider version of the bog bridging at the lower left that we did for a private landowner up in Goshen near Route 9. And then at the Doyle Conservation Center in Leominster, the trustees of reservation staff built this set of bridging. And I'll show you the detailed plan, but if you notice, every 4 feet, there is a 6x6 sleeper underneath the planks. And typically the planks are 10 feet long. That's what we'll do here. And so in most of these spots, we're talking about 12 or 16 feet. So just a couple of lengths of the bridging to get people up and out of the wet ground. Okay. And then included in the filing is the plan that we typically use for the bog bridging. And you'll see that the planks are on top of the sleepers, which actually measure 5.5, usually 5.5 by 5.5. And the ends of the sections will be fastened with rebar pounded a couple of feet into the ground. So the work is all done by hand. It's really low impact. It could take a little bit of grading to make sure that things sit level, but the total impact is very low. Okay. And please stop me at any point if anybody has questions or would like more details. So again, the work will be done in dry conditions this summer. Right now, things are pretty good. It hasn't been raining a lot. And if we have conditions like this would be a good time to do the relocations and the bridge construction. Hand tools. In this case, the bog bridging will be 30 inches wide because that's a little wider than the standard 21 inches that we've used, so that the footing is as good as possible for people who are less able to walk comfortably, and little or no ground disturbance. Okay. So here's another site with bog bridging proposed. There's kind of a trickle of water. This isn't really a stream, but it's a rivulet that's definitely seasonal, but in the early spring, winter, it can be fairly wet. So we're going to use the bog bridging there. Okay. And then here's a spot. I don't know if you can make out the pink wetland flags that are between Lucy and okay, there's one. You're indicating where that is. So the trail itself is to the left, the current trail, and that is just within the BVW. So the idea here is to move it up where Lucy is standing and around the wetland flags onto good dry land. This is White Pine Woods, fairly dry once you get away from the BVW. So it should be a long-lasting location. Okay. So across the field that is back near the west part of the trail, there have been for years 2 mowed paths to the right and left part of the field that you're looking at here, and they will be closed. The field that's going to be used, the trail that's going to be used is up along that left boundary next to the woods. That's a good bit drier. It runs actually on the uphill side of a small aspen stand, and then it rejoins a trail that's down below. So those will be closed and no longer mowed as a path. Then on this ridge that is dry and is now being mowed for invasives, and you all have discussed that project. That mowing just took place last week. What you're looking at in the aerial picture to the right, which I took with the drone a couple years ago, is the main trail going down the ridge, and that will continue because that's reasonably dry and up and away from the wetland. And then off to the right is a loop that will be closed because that does go down into wet ground, and we're trying to avoid that situation. Okay. So here's another spot. In this case, there's an intermittent stream. It's very narrow, and 16 feet of bog bridging will cross the stream. There will be no impact to the bank because the sleepers will sit on existing intact ground. And then up above where Lucy is walking, there will be a reroute. The present trail goes off to the left, and there's been kind of a channel formed just from surface runoff, and we want to avoid that. That will be closed, and the trail pretty much where Lucy is walking will be the new location. So 150 feet of trail will be rerouted. Okay. All right, that basically, I hope that shows you what we have in mind. And again, the idea would be to do it probably this summer if it's allowed, and to get it done before the wet season starts again. So glad to field questions or ideas.
Questions or comments from the commission?
Is there a concern about pressure treated wood in wetlands?
What kind of material will you be using, Pete?
Yeah, we would use pressure treated sleepers. That's typical, and that's really what most conservation groups have been using. But luckily the pressure treated material is not nearly as toxic as what was used 20 years ago. And the amount of contact with the ground will be essentially 1 square foot for each of the sleepers. So for example, for 16 feet, we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 square feet of contact with the ground. The idea there is not to use a material that's going to decay quickly, because then you're going back to the site and having to move material out and replace it much more frequently than you do with pressure treated.
You'll use ground contact pressure treated?
Yes. Yeah, we have used locust in a few cases, but it's really hard to get hold of, and it's fairly expensive compared with the pressure treated that we'll be using.
When they go over the streams, do you need any kind of erosion control or anything to?
So it sounds like there's just one stream that you're crossing. Is that correct, Pete?
There's one stream. Yes, there are a few trickles that are wet, during the winter or spring, but they hardly even qualify as intermittent streams. But the one I showed you, yes, that is has got a regular channel, and because it's got that defined channel, it's easy. It doesn't spread out all over, so it's going to be easy to cross comparatively.
And so your sleeper locations there will be outside of Bankful?
Yes, and that's at location 15. So it's up near the north boundary.
So what will be the span then between your sleepers there to get over the stream?
I think we'll go with 8 feet there. That will be plenty, and that'll meet the Bankful standards.
And how high above the stream will you be approximately?
I'm sorry?
About how high will you be above the stream?
It will be about 18 inches.
Do you have any concern about that washing out in large events? Does that stream get flashy?
No, it doesn't. It's pretty confined all year. Occasionally you might get to the banks, but it certainly doesn't, there's no floodplain there.
Okay.
So any more questions we can cover?
No, I think we're good. Any questions or comments from the public?
Well, thank you for listening.
I've not received any comments. Otherwise, it doesn't look like if there's anyone here who has questions or wants to speak to it, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
I think this is very low impact. I like the fact that it's going to be all handwork. Will there be any disturbance, Pete, from dragging materials in?
No, it won't be dragged. It'll be carried. We'll have probably a 4-person crew, and we'll carry the lumber right into the site and drop it right on the sleepers. And
So no equipment's required, right?
I'm sorry?
No equipment is required to move
Nope.
part of
Nope.
it.
No, we'll have a power drill to, a handheld drill to put the bolts into the planks and to fasten the sleepers down, but that's going to be it.
I feel comfortable that we can issue an NRD.
There should be one in the file on the very bottom of it.
Do we have any conditions that we want to talk about before we do this standard 48-hour notice condition?
And there's no erosion controls proposed.
There's nothing required, right? So
Right, I wouldn't think we're going to.
Sure, we'll plan to give you at least 48 hours notice.
So I think we would be looking at a negative determination.
or number 3.
2. It's within an area subject to protection, but will not remove, build, dredge, or alter, and therefore does not require a plat on the notice of intent.
So I'll make a motion that we should make a determination on number 2.
Do we have a second? Roll call vote. All those in favor, Commissioner Weeks?
Aye.
I'm blanking on names tonight again. Deborah?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
Michael? And Dan, who just arrived?
Abstain.
Motion passes. All
Nice.
right, so give us just a minute. Well, I guess we can fill this out after the fact, so they're
Yeah,
not
because no
here.
one's here to take.
Oh, yeah.
it.
We should
Okay.
still,
You
we
should
should
sign
still
it.
send it around and sign.
Yeah, send it
Give
around
us
and
a
sign it.
moment.
Yeah. And so what I'll do is I will scan this and email it to you tomorrow. If you want me, I can mail you a paper copy as well. But we can talk about it tomorrow.
Sounds great.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for your time.
Nice night.
Thank you.
You made it.
Nice,
Perfect.
pretty good.
We love the first hearing open, just in case you got it, right? Give us some input. I'm sure you're thrilled.
So we want to go back to that one?
Yes, let's
Okay.
do that. So Mark, if you want to.
Sure, I'll put the plan out again.
back up.
Oh, I can take that. Oh, when you're done.
So while we're continuing background signatures, I will just briefly recap. Mark already shared with us some more information on some hand auger soil information in, I think it was in the most pondward of the stormwater basins. We talked a little bit about the fact that one of the basins is outside of 50 feet from the slopes, but the other two are closer than that. And so we sort of left off thinking that Mark might try to rearrange some of it to pull them back. I don't know if there's anything further. We had your input that 50 feet was a good standard in the Mass Stormwater Handbook, but I wasn't sure if there's anything else you wanted to add or.
No, I don't think so. You know, unless there was a good reason why 50 feet would not be the number to use, like some kind of demonstration as to, you know, there being site-specific issues that show something to demonstrate that they wouldn't be a problem.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah, the basin number 1 does have the 50-foot separation to the top of the steep slope that you have. There's 7-foot difference from the basin to the top of the steep slope. So 7.5 is the magic number at 15%. This one is about 20 feet. So we had talked about taking it and just turning it in, you know, another direction or 90 degrees to move it further away. And that's, you know, an option.
Yep.
To be able to do that.
The other one.
And then look at, because this is such a tight area, that pinch point that comes up. Take a look at regrading or regrading this, whether we have to just raise this slightly to get this basin combined into this basin. So we've got 2 basins instead of 3. Soil testing that I did was 2 test pits in each, auger test pits in each.
okay.
So yes, we could, you know, there's not a lot of stormwater runoff on this. The driveway is only 16 foot wide.
Yeah.
And all these grass swales that convey the water down to the basins. In the book, you can't take credit for infiltration in those. You got pre-treat. So, you know, looking at it in a lot of reality aspects of it, water that flows all the way down here is going to infiltrate even in these channels, these grass channels, before it gets there. So, but I think we can make those modifications and comply with that 50-foot separation.
Okay.
That's all you have, right? Nothing else that you saw.
Yeah, we should call it, right?
Be cool to see like some kind of permeable pavement in some areas to cut down.
Yeah, we talked to the church about that. I mean, you could try to use them, but I think it's not going to be a big reduction on them, I think, because we don't have that much impervious.
Yeah.
You know, it's only 16 foot wide, coming back to the cul-de-sac. So it's not like a parking lot.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. If it was a parking lot or something, yes.
Yep.
We have just a small little parking area here for 4 cars, 8 cars total for the chapel. And half of that water goes into this basin and half back. So we split that up even.
Yeah.
Try to minimize it, so.
Yeah. I think it's cool for walking paths because, you know, during the spring when things are freezing and thawing, it thaws and then right down inside so you get frozen puddles and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But, okay.
Mark, are your swales optimized for infiltration rather than just conveyance?
No, because you can't, under the stormwater policy, you can't call those infiltration basins or swales because they don't have pre-treatment. So before you go into a infiltration basin, you know, we have a conveyance of grass swale or that meets the requirements of pre-treatment basin. So
Is that true that you're not supposed to infiltrate before you get to the basin?
I spent a lot of time since I went to the standards. That's probably how it's written from back then.
without pre-treating.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least for cases like this.
Well, yeah, I agree, because, and,
Yeah.
yeah, that's where, catch basins with hooded catch basins or some other type of, pre-treatment of stormwater. But when you're dealing with sheet flow, off of a small area, you don't have that ability of. and Unfortunately, there should be a little caveat for it. Something like this,
If you go down to two basins, will there be an issue here
No, because
with the roundabout and
no, because
point?
we would take this and take this grading and have it come this way. Instead of, right now, the high point is roughly here. It comes this way. So by changing the grade slightly, we can get it, I think we can get it to go the other way. So even if we had to take part of it, and another thing that we talked about early on is to have a swale grass channel down in this area. Where is it? So there's some options of trying to convey that water. It's a tight area.
That might cut into your usage of your property though.
Right, trying to minimize the amount of grave sites that you would potentially lose.
Right, so we might have it in the right place now.
But there's just no way we could climb 50 feet.
Right, no, I agree.
There's a basin in the middle of the roundabout.
Because you could put it there so people die.
Yeah. Another 100 years.
Right, another 100
Yeah,
years.
right before anyone, right. Who knows? Yeah, and then, that's another possibility is, does this small little basin, instead of the sheet flow coming this way, does it go the opposite way? It doesn't sit over here. Right. Because, there's a big difference. More space. Let me see if there's 30 scale drawing. You'd still be tight there. So let's take a look at it and see which, without trying to lose too many sites.
And as long as we're 50 feet back, do you have any concerns about slope stability infiltrating along those slopes?
It's not like we're adding a ton of weight on top or, it's not a lot of water. Higher the slopes.
I mean, my concern isn't normal conditions, it's what's gonna happen in a phase.
I mean, these are all thoroughly vegetated, thick vegetation along these entire slopes.
Yep.
Mature trees and root systems that are gonna remain. It's pretty stable. We're walking down there, these slopes. I didn't notice any erosion currently, granted it's the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's a relatively small amount going on, I think. And, you can have some tricky slopes around the city though.
Yes.
Yeah. Guess I'm not, this one doesn't jump out at me as like particularly red flag, like, I mean, years ago at Gillian Estates, that was a shorter slope, but
Yes.
it was an infiltration system you guys designed,
Yes.
above slope. I don't think there's been any problems with that one.
Right.
It's also kind of a wider.
Right. And it's all great again.
Yeah,
So,
this is all sand totally.
yeah, right, yeah. The first sea layer is good sand, and it gets into some sandy loam, tighter materials that has perch water on it, so. But you don't see any of that on the slope perching out,
Yeah. So, I mean, can you say for certain there won't be a problem? Like, I guess not, but it seems like kind of a low, like this situation.
Okay, so Commissioner one, who will continue to
Next meeting, you're trying to get for that.
Try to, yes.
So I'll make a motion that we continue to June 27th at 6 p.m.
Second? Do we have second?
Second. Figured
Roll call vote.
to July.
Commissioner Butters.
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks.
Aye.
Commissioner August.
Be the second.
Commissioner Carr.
Monday in July.
Okay, so yes, the
Commissioner
11th.
Ryan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
What's that? What'd you say?
It'd be 11th of July.
Yeah. I think we could try to,
Curiosity, do they put the concrete vaults in? They wait until the cease people to put in them, or do they put the concrete vaults in right
First.
away?
so the procedure is that during a burial, the morning of the burial, depending on what time it is, they'll dig the hole, put the concrete vault in.
It doesn't happen until the person is deceased. Like they're not putting concrete vaults in now for.
Oh, no. Oh, no. So that
Yeah.
all these grave sites, it could be no one in there for 50 or 100 years.
Right.
Or no digging.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, some people, pre-purchase a grave plot, but it just stays as virgin soil until such time as they pass away.
Yeah.
And then they do their thing.
Thank you, Mark. All right, moving on. Request for certificates of compliance. Continue from May 23rd, 161 to 165 Northampton Street, Mass. DEP file number 1510189 for mixed-use development with grading and drainage utilities, including 3 buildings and a parking area.
Yeah, if I can.
Yeah.
So where it left off was the commission asked me to go take another look to make sure it was dry at the bottom of the basin, because that was the biggest question, was this basin. And I was able to go out there on the 25th of May. And I can pull up the pictures here in just a second. Let me give you the file and realize them. And for the most part, I'd say that it was dry. It was muddy at the very center, low part. But I couldn't see any standing water. And if I stepped in it, I went down maybe like an inch or two in some mud and then felt hard ground. And then lifting my foot out, there might be a little water taking its place. Let me see here. The pictures will look better on the EV. That was only at the very lowest point of the basin as well. The rest of it is, you'll be able to see in these images, is drop. So hold on a second. So still with this reed-like grass and like the canary grass. And be stepping on this area and no mud. Now we're getting towards the deepest part. This is closest to the inlet. Not the deepest part anymore. This is closest to the inlet for water. I'm coming off from the parking lot, and then this is the deepest part. Me kind of stepping in it. You can see the water around. And again. And when I took my foot out, so there's a little there. That was it. That's all the pictures I got. And then I think you reached out to me. I don't know.
Yes, the day before I went
yeah.
out and did the same thing. I took pictures
Mhm.
of it, found the same conditions that Cassie found. There is a thick layer of old replanary grass on the bottom of it, and other vegetation has died off over the years. So it's got a nice soft bottom that when you step on it, it's soft. Because they don't mow it, the bottom of it, So it is. For all intents, I believe the tent way back when, I remember Kelly Ritchie was the chair and so forth, there was a very deep concern about West Nile virus and stormwater basins containing water and potentially being mosquito breeding areas. So we made every effort to make every basin to be as dry as possible so that you don't have that condition happening.
Kathy, did you go through and identify any continuing conditions?
I think it was just the operation and maintenance of the basin would be the only continuing condition. I can pull up the order here, just double check. But it's an older order, so it's not, doesn't have as much in the way of conditions as we currently do.
And did we find an actual operation and maintenance plan?
No, back then there wasn't the same standard
Okay.
as there is today. There is a language in the order of conditions about maintaining it, but there's no formal O&M.
Right, so all I'm seeing in the order is that it shall be periodically maintained as necessary by removal of accumulated sediment or debris that would reduce the design storage capacity.
Correct.
So how does the material that you mentioned, the vegetative material that's decomposing in there, play into that?
It's really at the very bottom of it. The bottom layer of it is not that, I mean, there's not a great deal of accumulation. I think what talking about is, what Cassie was talking about, you step on it, you might go down an inch or two, you know, where soft areas are. And that you can see by the pictures, they've been mowing and maintaining the slopes to make sure there's no woody vegetation around it, to make sure that it retains the volume capacity of it.
Okay, so it sounds like our main ongoing maintenance is just to make sure that that material is not further accumulating, and that if it does start to accumulate to any depth, it needs to be cleaned out. Any other comments from the commission?
I apologize, I missed the last meeting. Is this the property where we had some enforcement stuff? Like
Yes.
years
Yes.
ago? Okay. Yeah.
And it's been resolved since.
Okay, I'm just trying to remember what I addressed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. Perfect.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we issue a CFC for the property of 161 to 165 Northampton Street.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Patrick?
Aye.
Keith?
Aye.
August? Aye. Carr?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Who seconded it? I missed it. Okay, thank you.
Do we have,
Should be in the
forms to sign?
last page, maybe behind that plan there, I don't know.
There we go.
Okay. So once they're done signing it, I'll just go copy it real quick.
Sure.
And then
Or I can, if it's, you know, you got other business, I can pick it up. It's been 10 years. That's another day.
And if you're coming back to the next meeting, I guess.
Yeah, I
so.
can pick it up the next meeting.
Okay, I'll email
That's
you a
fine.
copy
Yeah,
for sure tomorrow.
That's fine.
easy,
So
yeah.
no pressure to get it done.
Okay, wicked, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, leave that 2 weeks. So.
Yep.
All right, thank you all. Have a good night.
Have a good evening.
Aye. I'm just curious, I'm not planning on this, but does anybody ever say down when we do roll call, has anyone ever voted against saying?
People saying if they weren't present in a previous meeting, don't really know what's going on.
There ever been any big conflicts or guys were split down the middle of the committee or something?
Usually if there's a conflict, we resolve the issue this
Yeah.
before it gets to a vote.
Basically, everything is, if it's gonna be denied, there should be a reason that's enforced by the Wetlands Protection Act to do a denial.
Right,
So we
So-
should be able to correct that concern of
before
ours.
you vote.
You would have,
You would have been the one.
I split commission one time,
Oh, boy.
50-50, and that was, nobody knew what that meant at first.
Uh-oh.
So it meant I got denied. That was interesting.
That's fine.
All right, our next order of business is a request for certificate of compliance for the city of Easthampton, Mass DEP file number 151303 for roadway improvements and maintenance of Ferry Street and Pleasant and Lovefield Streets intersection. Do we have someone here to speak for this matter?
We do. Hi.
Susan,
Hi.
yourself?
Yep, I'm Stephanie McDonald with McMahon Associates, engineer on the project. So yes, we're requesting certificate of compliance based on the project is substantially complete and the site is stabilized. I was out last week with Cassie and one of the members to do a site walk, and yes, if you have any questions, do we want to see the pictures?
Yeah, I can go ahead and share those pictures now.
Cassie, before you do that,
Yes.
can we clarify what extents this includes? Is this everything up through the slope along Ferry, or does this end before that?
My understanding it's the area above, I don't know if you are familiar where the EV chargers are there. That was part of this project. So it's that area, but not farther beyond that, for that sloped area. And
It
then,
it does not include the sloped area where Ferry Street is doing the work.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
No,
Yes,
that's
that's
different.
right.
Yes,
Doesn't include
Okay.
that.
very much so.
That's what I
And then it's the whole rotary, the roundabout area, and then it comes down along where the pond there, up to where the dam is. And they're doing that invasive management work.
Wait, it does include it.
The area I'm talking about is behind the mills, closer to where the rail trail splits to Northampton and
Right, not
That
that,
doesn't
but it
include
does
that part.
include the slope.
In
That's
where the powers are, where the powers are, yes.
Yeah, along
Alright.
Ferry Street, yeah.
When they just did all that landscaping this week, they put in the fence along the water, railings.
The shared use path, yes, and then the bank stabilization.
Okay, so I can share those photos if y'all like, you're ready.
Please.
Okay. Share my screen. Okay, so this is what I was describing, kind of down this way along Ferry Street in this upper areas where they're doing that invasive species management. And then the road kind of extends down this way. That was included, but not very far. So just kind of all these pictures are just kind of showing there, as far as I can see, there's no areas of loose soil or non-vegetated soil. Commissioner Weeks attended this site visit with me.
Conservation Commission?
Correct. On it. Looking back up. So the pond is kind of behind me here.
Yeah, so you're looking
Yeah, road is-
westward towards the roundabout.
Yep, roundabout's right up there. Making our way down. This is the area of disturbance from the
Installation,
installation of the fountains that we can get into later.
yeah, later.
And that is also within the area of this vegetation management, which is currently underway, the invasive management. Sign talking about the invasive management. Going down more. Looking back up. Well vegetated. Those are stones in there all along here.
Yep, the existing granite wall.
Yep, is existing. Detail of that. getting closer to the dam, which is up ahead.
Well, that's the spillway. The dam
Excuse
is
me, the
actually
spillway.
that extent of Ferry Street.
If we stop at the spillway for 1 second, the city planner wanted to get all the straw wattles removed, and I did notice there was one at the end there, which may be a reason why it was left. There's one at the other end also, like 12 foot of, straw wattle, but
Yeah, you'll see it. I got it in pictures here too. I did notice that was still there, and I'm not sure the reasoning. They had come to the commission previously, not as part of this request, but to request that they could remove the erosion controls.
correct.
Before getting this certificate of compliance, because there was some kind of issue with the contractor. There was going to be
Just
additional
want to make sure it got done.
demobilization fees.
That's all before.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know if this area down here got completed. I mean, it hasn't yet, this area down here, and I'm not sure what the reasoning behind that was. Though I don't know if that would be a barrier to certificate of compliance.
I'm not saying it is.
Okay.
I'm just curious. They left a section.
Yeah.
It's not that much.
I'll ask Jeff about it
One on
again.
each end, actually.
Yeah. I'll ask Jeff again, see if I can get, I don't know, Steffi, if you have anything else to say to that, but you can kind of see it here too.
Yeah, no, the site should be stabilized. Yeah, and I am unaware or why that would be remain. Because the seeding and mulching has been completed where needed.
Everything looks stable.
Okay, so now we're going back up. We're back at the roundabout. This is kind of an overview of that area. The EV chargers are more to the right here in this image. You can't see them yet. This is that area along the slope here, and then that is the end. I don't know, you probably can't hardly see my cursor.
And that's where the other straw wattle is at that very end.
Correct.
Kind of curved up the hill a little bit.
That's right, yeah. Yep. Yep. Majority of this area is outside of the buffer zone.
Yeah.
Then we get back into it here again, so see.
Basically, the grass area on the left of the photograph is within jurisdiction. The Manhan Rail Trail is outside.
Everything is, they have to go in and pull out those other walk holes. Is that cause to start?
I don't think so. No, it's right off of the trail or off the sidewalk. It's really cool. They want to slit them and dump the chips and pull them out by hand.
Did we have a stormwater permit here also, Captain?
Good question.
Yes.
Yes, there was one.
Can you remind us what the stormwater system was?
So the outlets were not, the outfalls were not touched. We did some new catch basins, deep sumps, as far as we could within the dam parameters, actually. So I don't think we ended up not having them deep sumps. There was a slight increase in impervious area, but it was negligible. And we originally, if you, basically where we have a little bit of a mulch, where the, see where that woman's walking, there's like an area of mulch where we have some benches. That area we were proposing like a pervious pavement, but the area was so small and then it was so close because that area can't be salted anyway, but the city decided they were not going to maintain it. So it was so negligible that it wasn't an issue that you guys let it go. Yeah. So literally this area to the left was going to be like a pervious area, but as you can see, it's mulched and it's actually the adjacent owners added some plantings. But so the outfalls remain the same. We did a little bit of tweaking just because we have some raised crosswalks. So to alleviate that drainage, I think we added one or two more catch basins and just reconfigured a little bit of the system and new piping within the jurisdiction. And then outside, so that the increase in impervious was the on-street parking that we added up on Love Field where the EV chargers are, but there's also some just regular parking. So that was existing pervious area that was changed to impervious.
Betsy, I don't have a copy of the order in the folder here.
Oh, I do.
And do you know, I think we had requested feedback from ODS. Did you hear anything from them?
Yeah, Stephanie, you can probably do that.
Yep. So I reached out to them. We submitted about a month ago and received comments. Basically, there's just a couple deviations from the permit plans that they wanted just some basically more clarification and on the condition and the performance of the dam. There were 3 specific items that we are currently addressing and will be speaking to them about. Would you like me to let you know them, what they are?
Yes. Do we have a copy of that correspondence?
No, we just received it. But if you'd like it, so granite blocks were used in place of cast in place concrete for water main thrust blocks. So again, they just want to know what performance that will do within the dam. Pilings, so those pilings that you see actually in this picture, they were supposed to be drilled, but they were excavated. So right now we're just looking just kind of at elevations, and it's likely underneath lower than the spillway, so it won't pose an issue, but they want to know that response. So if you'd like our response, we can do it. And then the last one was crushed stone was mixed in with the native material and like hard pack when we were backfilling. So originally we didn't specify that any crushed stone would be used, but there was some. So those were their 3 concerns.
And is there a separate ODS permit for the project?
Yes.
Are there any questions from the commission?
So the invasive treatment along the slope, that is, what is that permitted under, or is that our condition under this permit?
Yeah.
It's part of this permit.
Okay, all right. So
Ongoing one.
be an ongoing, like.
And there was a plan that was already submitted, and I believe like approved, and that's why it's started. So
And
the
the plan
city,
is to control the invasive, is that,
Remove and just kind of manage into the future.
I don't know that this has anything to do with our purview, but maybe this is the ODS department, but I'm just curious, that dam is like always full of trash. And I just wonder if that affects the functioning of the dam. And if it's, any plans to clean it out? Not that, I don't know that your company would be.
The city does not own the dam, so it wouldn't even be under the same ownership as this project.
well, the city owns the roadway part of the dam. They're co-owners, but really it's just the roadway part, and like the spillway, and the embankments are owned privately.
Did you receive a stamped set of plans, Cassie?
Let's see. Stephanie, do you know the ones, I know you gave me one set that was just a piece of them, and then you also gave me a bigger set, like the really thick one might be the sample.
Yeah. Yeah, the one they printed were just for their site walk in case we had any questions questions. Those aren't to scale or anything. I just printed them because it was easy. But the as-built that we sent, so we submitted those but we didn't stamp them, but we issued them for Conservation Commission project closeout. But would you like it stamped?
They're required to be stamped by a professional engineer.
Okay.
So we'll need that before we can officially close the permit.
That won't be a problem.
Our in perpetuity conditions were stabilized slopes to be maintained as designed and constructed by the property owner of the record. Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and fertilizers shall not be used within a 100-foot buffer zone. Organic pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and fertilizers may be used subject to review and approval of the commission. So that obviously applies to the invasives treatment. Only native non-invasive plant species may be planted on site. Seed mixes should also consist of 100% native non-invasive species. No dumping of leaves, grass clippings, brush, or other debris into wetland resources or the 100-foot buffer. Additional alteration prohibited without review and permit, and the non-native invasive plant species monitoring and management to continue to prevent the spread of non-native and or invasive species within the project area, including but not limited to the stormwater basin, but I don't think really applies here. This condition shall survive the expiration of this order. And Cassie, can you remind me what the term of our invasive species plan that's active is?
Like how long? I believe it's a number of years. I think it's in. It's for 2025. Last one, and that one says the area should be reassessed and determined continued follow-up and or stewardship visits will be necessary at that stage.
Are there any other questions, comments? So I think the only thing that we seem to be missing is the stamped set of plans. Which one?
In the correspondence with the Office of Dam Safety.
And yes, and a copy of that.
So would you like just what we have right now with dam safety, or you're waiting for their final? Like, we're going to submit them a letter and then hear back. So or do you just want to want the email with their concerns?
I think that's sufficient. Other thoughts? If ODS have their own permit.
Yeah, I don't think we have to be too concerned about what happens going forward.
Right.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, great.
So can we have a motion to continue?
Motion to continue through 27th at 6 p.m.
Do we have a second? All those in favor, roll call vote. Patrick?
Aye.
Weeks?
Aye.
August? Aye. Carr?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to request an item be taken out of order, for which we have an attendee for, and that is going to be, so there's two people here. Dan Nietzsche is here for a later item, but he has to leave at 7:45, was it, Dan?
Yes,
Yeah, and Bucky.
7:30, the Belts County Commission, yeah.
Yeah, he's got another commission meeting. And Bucky, you're listed higher on the agenda, but I was hoping if we could accommodate Mr. Nietzsche, if that works for the commission or works for you, Bucky.
That'd be great. No problem.
Great. So I'd like to request to take item 9C out of order.
Motion to take 9C out of order.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Patrick?
Aye.
Weeks?
Aye.
August? Aye. Carr? Aye. Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, Sorry, which item was it, Cassie?
So this is 9C, 93 Northampton Street, rear possible violation.
Okay.
Dan, if it's all right, can I give them a little overview first?
Oh,
or-
sure, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I got an abutter or a resident reached out about a concern about possible filling of some wetlands on this property, and I was able to do a site visit on, actually I have all these pictures here for you too.
Is this the one behind Safety Top?
Correct. It used to be associated with Toasty Top. It is no longer. Where is it? Oh, here. So I did a site visit on 7 with the property owner, Mr. Nietzsche. All the most recent stuff is on the top there.
Who's the property owner these days?
Mr. Is it still Mr. Courtney?
No, it is not.
He's out.
Dan, do you know, I can't remember his name. I remember his first name, Frank
Oh, Frank Demarinis.
Demarinis.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the owner of Sage Engineering. I think the company name for that property is like Roots Development LLC would be my guess.
sounds familiar. Well, so
ROOTS,
this-
Roots Development, I believe.
I see. So yeah, I did a site visit with the property owner. In the past, this project or this parcel received an ORAD or Order of Resource Area Delineation for the wetlands on site. And the area of concern is 3 isolated wetlands that were identified at that time. And at that time, the city commissioned a peer review for that delineation. And the original delineation was done by yourself, Dan, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So at that time, there was a peer review completed, and it was noted that there seemed to be wildlife using these isolated areas. The pools that are there were not certified as vernal pools, however, and aren't marked as potential vernal pools on the current GIS mapping data. But it was noted that, there's some wildlife seen there in that peer review. In 2008, there was an extension of this ORAD, and that was noted again that there was possible function as vernal pools of these isolated wetlands. But the final order did not indicate as such that was issued. Then there was, so during the site visit, those areas had been filled, these isolated wetland areas got filled, and they potentially are within the buffer zone, that filling work still. So,
Filled how?
what's that?
They got filled how?
I think just regular equipment put in there. Does that?
Yeah, just for clarification, they were not filled with any soil. A excavator was in the area using the bucket to disturb the soil surface to allow water to percolate through the ground. Because over time, the bottom of these isolated areas have been blinded over with soft sediment. There wasn't very much in there. We didn't notice much in there years ago. And so that was just like with a machine, just sort of as I'm using with my hand, just sort of digging at the soil surface, but no fill was brought in to cover them up. So you could easily walk out there and see these locations.
Yeah, I have images that I'll share.
Right. But as Cassie's saying, one of them was in a buffer zone, which Frank did not realize. He read the isolated part that they were non-jurisdictional, but didn't realize that one of them was also in a buffer zone. And he has since stabilized the area using, and I think Cassie has some pictures to that, using a straw wattle and silt fence.
Yep. So during the site visit, I requested that, because it's very close to this very steep area that leads down into some streams. So I asked that some erosion controls and straw piling be installed just as a safeguard at this time. So I guess what I'd like to show is the pictures now, if that makes sense to y'all, or do you want to see the old delineation, or it's since expired. It's been over 3 years, so it's not necessarily valid anymore, but for permanent
Show us
purposes.
that so we can get a sense of where on the property we're talking about.
Yeah, let's do that first. All right, hold on a second. There's a copy inside that file somewhere, the big one. There was a more recent delineation that was done that has some drawing on it. I think that's the one you're holding there. That was done in January of this year. In the file, though, is the original ORAD that shows the isolated areas. This plan does not show them and hasn't been previously reviewed by the commission.
Where's the area on that drawing?
So it won't be as clear. I can show you here. Let me show you the original ANRAD first.
And if I recall, I think those were labeled like a 4W, 5W. I believe those are what the original labeling was for the isolated system.
Yeah, yep. So it's a little hard because it's oriented not north-south here, but basically you start over here. This is where the ice cream place is and the golf range. Where we walked down here, we went over a crossing kind of near the north, closer to the street. And then you come down farther away from Northampton Street, and these are the areas which were altered.
Right. Can you zoom in a little bit? I can't quite see.
Yeah, I can.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Looks different on my screen.
Is it getting close to the Manhattan River?
It is. The Manhattan River is near there. These are some tributaries to it. That's how I would see it. So these areas.
No, we're. Yeah, these are probably 300 plus feet away from the Manhan. Oh. The riverfront area from the Manhan just comes onto the.
You're breaking up, Dan. We're not hearing you very well.
Sorry, Dan, that broke up a little. Can you say that one more time? Oh, he's frozen. I think one thing that I heard was that it's about 300 feet from the Manhan itself.
Yeah, the riverfront area is here.
Right, that's the 200 foot.
Yeah, it's 4 and 5.
These two isolated areas or thereabouts, I think.
And
because I.
there's 3. And those are vertical.
Well, oh, can we?
The Manhan River
Still sketchy.
Feet away.
You're breaking up still, Dan. Sorry.
Do you remember, Joe?
Yes.
That you were out
Correct.
there?
I've been out there
when we
many
did the
times,
site
Mr.
visit?
Courtney.
Do you remember where? Does this map mean anything to you in terms of where we were at those times? Because I know that we were out there looking at some isolated areas.
Yes, but it was closer to the river, perhaps, where he took me multiple times. So we probably weren't looking at.
Closer to the Manhan, not this
Yes,
one.
well, yeah, closer to this. It was this tributary that connects to the Manhan.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Oh,
Darn it.
can you hear us? Lovely.
But Mr. Courtney was claiming that someone was filling the river in at night.
Right,
But there
right.
was
along this
no
channel.
visual evidence of any equipment there.
Right. And I don't remember, I feel like we were further
Over this way.
that way.
Yeah.
When we were out there that day,
Over
right?
in this area.
So I don't think I've seen this side of it.
Maybe not.
If it's helpful, I can share the pictures.
Did you find, these are current or did you find old ones?
I didn't find any old one, except for the butter was able to share some pictures with me. The person who originally reached out. I have a picture from, let's see, 2018.
That's
And you
closer
can
to
kind of
Mr.
see.
Bell's property on the other side when you're talking right now.
So this is an original picture for anything you have.
Correct.
From
From 2018.
Will you be water?
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, no.
Oh, when you get a chance, you can find it. Don't do it again. Just right up there, but just don't forget. So yeah, this picture is in 20. Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
My name's Sam Nelson. You see that? Where the tree line ends behind the pool? That's the embankment that goes down to the manhole with a shelf about 60 feet down. And then it's another, say, 40-foot slope after that shelf. And then it's almost
Can you guys
level,
hear me?
and then it probably 40 feet to the river.
Yes.
So that, if you look right back here, that's the cliff.
Okay.
Where it goes down. Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you, Dan. Can you hear us?
That pool is actually quite large.
Okay.
And then there's another one
Can you hear me, Cassie?
200 yards off, click on the map. It was even bigger.
Yes, Dan, we can hear you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And the one that's off about 200 yards off, whole bank of the house blown out because there's a draw right there. Try to keep that whole bank right out. It's all drained like that.
Dan, try turning your video off so that you're not using so much bandwidth with that.
That's a good plan.
Yeah, if you can hear us, you can try turning your video off, Dan. That might be helpful on your end.
I grew up there. Those have been there since I was a kid, since I was her age. It never really changed in size. They've been pretty drought sustaining, with the exception of the mid smaller one. That one would sometimes dry up July and August, but those two other big ones always had water.
Okay, so I can share, if it's all right, the pictures now from the site visit. So this was on June 7th. So it starts out, we walked on the area to this crossing here. And the property owner noted that he added this metal plate on top of an existing crossing. A number of photos of this.
So where is the crossing?
Yeah. So somewhere around here.
I don't remember a heavy duty crossing.
No, that's new.
Either.
That's over that creek that runs between the apartments
So
and,
that wasn't there before.
no, that's brand new. I haven't seen that.
All right. So that's a problem right there.
We've lost Dan again. Yeah, okay, that's good to know. The property owner at the time told me that was existing.
No. Absolutely not.
Dan works with GZA, but I don't know if he's working under them right now. He's with the property owner. And he did the original delineation in 2005.
What's the, for the commission?
It was a violation, it has a violation occurred. Should an enforcement order be issued?
That's new since fall.
Okay.
December.
Was there something there before, a partial crossing of some type?
Was the road there?
No, that's all.
Yeah.
I don't remember there being a road.
Nothing arose.
I wasn't even there in December when I was.
Because we reclined through fields to get to those ponds.
Right.
Yeah.
None of that. I've been in the woods since.
Where is that?
That's
Jay, would you
brand
be
new.
able to dig up, I know you took photos
Sure.
when you were out there. Would you be able to dig them up? I wasn't sure if Kathy might have them in the files, but
I didn't find them. So hold on just a second. So this area, like I said, is up above, closer to the road on Northampton Street. And pictures. Now we've come out to the fields. We're there. Make our way around.
When did the property, change ownership?
I don't know. I can figure that out. And Jeff might know, but also the applicant, I'm sure, knows.
So, you know, there was like the time that you all were talking about when John Corrigan was coming to meetings and bothering everybody. He was
Coming to my house.
Yeah, so I was on the commission for this that Dan read, and I remember walking in with Alec McLeod and Dan Michie and talking specific wetland flags. And I've seen the old Stop and Shop site plans, I think, and I'm having a really hard time. I'm having a really hard time remembering because it's been a long time, and obviously none of it's applicable anyways, but there was something about, it wasn't going to be the developer of the site, but something about putting in a bridge over that stream for the benefit of the property owner. outside, so I think it's like, I think part of, if Stop and Shop never came before us for a permit, I believe if they had, the intent was that they provide access to the rear of the lot for the property owner at that time. And once Stop and Shop dropped out of the process, I remember like one of those meetings that John, like that was Mr. Courtney, one of his big contentions was not having access to the back of the property. And I remember like him walking out of here muttering something about like, you know, about access. So I guess I wouldn't like, I'm kind of feeling like maybe he had the mistaken impression that he could have been allowed to have done that. So that may have been done.
Through the ad, through the
By
older ad?
previous property owner.
I can attest that that was not there in December.
That was in December. Huh. Do you know when the property changed hands? This is all in the
I can
material,
answer
I guess, but like, yeah, access to the back of that property was a big like point of contention for a long time, I think. For whatever that's worth.
Was that crossing right behind Burger King? Is that where that bridge is?
I would say that's the closest area. Yeah, that's drainage.
That's definitely planned.
I feel like I heard last summer, like Tasty Top under your bench.
There's been a lot going on over there. It's hard to say exactly when it would have changed hands to this current property owner. There was a lot of like discussion about a lot of potential buyers. So I think if I remember correctly.
Let's take a look at the pictures.
Yep, let's keep going. So, all right. The crossing is now kind of like behind me, and this is to the existing agricultural fields. We're going down towards the area where looking back up, this image is looking back up the area of concern is to the right more so in the tree line. And panning across.
Is this always been just?
It's been agricultural for some time, yeah. You can see the aerial imagery
Is
of
that
that being.
Mr. Gall's property that we're looking at?
No, this is.
Gulls is the other side of the
Yeah.
field.
It would be to the left in this image quite a ways. This area here of trees would be, you can see kind of this little.
Okay.
Tree. That's what we're kind of looking straight at right now. Okay. Panning around the field. Again, that's that kind of straight line of trees there. Getting closer to it, this is where the disturbance picks up again into where those areas were. It's the main path into it. This is the first area. So we'll just be panning around this first one. This is probably the best view of it.
Is this what you're showing us, it's no where it was?
Yeah, this is for the picture was.
That is the picture where you saw the standing water. That's that right there. That's where the standing water was.
Okay.
Looking back out of that entrance. Oh, sorry, I can go back.
You see this right here? That was an old homemade tree stand put up by Mr. Courtney.
Okay.
That's actually where that picture was taken.
So Cassie, could you tell if there was something filled in, or because Dan was saying it would, they moved the sediment around? Did you tell if
That looks pretty filled in.
The soil was certainly disturbed and there is not vegetation, whereas in everywhere else there's vegetation.
What's the reason for going back there?
Yeah, what's the road purpose of the road?
I asked him and it was, no clear reason was given at that time, what the point of the reasoning behind it.
It's a little weird, isn't it, to take a tractor and just sort of dig lightly in sediment?
So this is the other area.
In terms of this being agricultural, like what has been agricultural back here?
I can share some aerial imagery. Yeah.
They have cornfields for decades.
I think how was access to the back side of the property? How did access to I guess that's the whole east side of the property occur? generally, because so I'm assuming that crossing we were looking at was to get over this stream that kind
That
of
was to get the excavator over.
cuts the site in half.
As an excavator on the ground.
So I don't know previously, but they have been doing agricultural work back in that farther part before. And I don't know if there was some kind of agricultural, they just drove through or but they may have gotten access maybe from the golf near the part, I'm not sure.
They would have had to come from the golf course.
Yeah.
Or from the driving range.
Yeah, let me.
The attorney's not gonna let them do that.
Oh, I think. So hopefully this is helpful. Kind of just to see an overview.
In some of the pictures that you sent us, you can see the buildings across the street, so you can get an idea how it's all on that.
Mhm.
Like where Can Man and the tanning places are on the right. And then across the street, you can see the Alley Farms. You can tell you're looking at this one.
Yeah. So yeah, this is Northampton. I don't know if you can, I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry, hold on. Presenting. Share my screen. Tab. That's not fair. Okay, here we go. So you can see Northampton Street here. Oh, in a second. Northampton Street here. This is like the driving range, Chase Top area. And then the crossing, as I understand it, is somewhere around here, right? Because that's where he can't cross it in his property. And then these are the agricultural fields. This is that little line of trees. And then this is the area of these isolated.
So how does he get his equipment out there?
Before this crossing?
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't say.
He would have to go through Bernie's property.
That wouldn't probably happen.
They may have been some kind of agreement. Potentially driving just
Now,
through the water.
there may have just been open ways of getting there that didn't have trees in the way, but it
No,
wasn't.
there's that heavy creek that
Okay.
goes through this stand of trees right.
It runs down the middle of that, right?
Right through here,
Okay.
and it feeds down into here and into Manhattan.
Okay.
We're looking at the blown up on our understanding of agricultural.
I have it in the binder. But as a rule of thumb, expanding in agricultural areas, usually you would need a permit. If,
Right.
there's that area that has been being used, then if there's any expansion. But for crossings, it's
In
right.
the agricultural area on the right side of that, how did they use farming equipment there before if there was no roadway before?
I have to ask.
I believe that there was an easement agreement with Mr. Ball
Yeah,
to get in,
Okay.
to plant the.
yeah, that makes sense, golf and mullet.
Even if
'cause he
they
has
did
to
access
get the-
that side from both properties.
With the previous
Historically.
owners, I believe there was an agreement. And then the left side there, that's actually currently, the top of the screen, that's currently hayfields.
Right. These are all golf. These three here are golf properties.
Yeah. So, this backfield been paved or used for corn, like in recent years?
Last year, there's still standing dead corn that they didn't cut last year.
Yeah,
It's still there.
Okay, and obviously that's before that crossing went in, the new bridge.
I know it's just hearsay, but I can tell you that crossing.
Yeah, I mean, pretty sure it didn't exist.
And if I could point, to a large pool, the first pictures that you saw, and the picture of the state of water is right where my cursor is. Smaller pool was right here, and then the other larger pool was right over here. And there's a dry creek bed right here that's actually pretty steep. And this part of it right here was all excavated out so that this can drain down. And so this was excavated out too, so this part can drain down this way. And it was not a small amount to be excavated.
It may be clear in the images if I go back to my site visit photos, if you'd like to see. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems like there's been violations, like with the new stream crossing and disturbance of some of these areas.
So Mr. Nietzsche sounded like he was representing that owner. That's
Correct. Yep. Yeah, that's my understanding.
We lost him.
Yeah, it looks like he had technical difficulties, which is unfortunate.
Can we continue the discussion or we need
We
to?
can, it's not a hearing. This is just a general business possible violation review.
But he did the original
Correct.
delineation?
Yeah, yep. And there was a peer review by Alec McLeod, which is included in that file there.
And did you talk to the owner when you did?
Yes, he was there during the site visit.
And what did he say?
I asked him the purpose, the story, the purpose behind it, the reasoning, and there wasn't much in the way of the reasoning. I'm sure he'd be happy to, he was very forthcoming in terms of my questions and talking to me, but I think, I don't know what the intent was.
Does the agricultural apply to the whole property?
Only where it's currently being like farmed, you know what I mean? Like the extent of
That
the
wooded
field.
area?
If it hadn't been before, but it is a question of whether or not those areas are jurisdictional of the commission if they weren't certified as vernal pools.
But they're not part of the agricultural.
No, not my understanding.
You did say it's within the buffer.
I think so, but the delineation is old, but it looks like based off of that information that is the case.
And it was isolated wetlands before.
So Cassie, I think that we should issue an enforcement order with, I think we can do a cease and desist for further disturbance, correct? Until it's been handled. And then I think we're gonna need to enlist some input from DEP to give Mary a call. Circuit Rider.
It's not Mary, it's actually
Oh, it's not.
Tom
That's right. There's two.
Briscoe. Yeah, so Mary's the other letters. I will, and I've been in communication with him so far, so he's
Does he have
great.
any input?
Not at this time, but I think if I have more information now to give him, so I'll see what they say.
And I think if we can find a time that works, it would be good for some of us who've been on the property before to get out there and take a look. And just, I mean, I don't know how much we'll collectively be able to actually remember, but we've all been out there a number of times, so.
Well, I should see some pictures so they can give detailed descriptions of where everything was.
I don't know.
Or not. I know when the Borchowski property on the other side of the Highland Ave was an issue, we were invited along with the people from UMass to do the testing of the soil.
Was that for a permit?
No, it actually wasn't the Borchowski, it was I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he owns the property on the other side of Borchowski, which is almost to the post office.
Oh.
When they went through and started clear cutting real quick and then the team someone came out from UMass and they tested the soil and they got delineated wetland.
Wouldn't be Saranac, would it?
What's that?
Wouldn't be Saranac, would it?
No.
Okay, that's something else. Sorry, I can't
The
think.
gentleman owns those office building
Oil.
apartments on top.
Oil?
Oil?
Oil. Sorry. Oil.
It's hard to say with public attendees, just because it's I don't know, because I can ask DEP, I guess, just because the property owner has to.
Commission's attention to.
You could always ask the property owner.
I live in those woods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My kids were out there weekly.
Because I'm just thinking it's private property and they're kind of
Yes.
giving us permission to go on there, so
Right.
it's one of those things, but I'd certainly ask. And trying to think just procedurally with an enforcement order, oftentimes, if we can just look at the form, if that's okay, because I want to make sure I fill it out in a way that makes sense. So let me stop.
When you reach out to DEP, I've got some resources too, but when you reach out to DEP, you would also ask them to pull any aerial imagery that they might have. That would be useful for us.
Okay, just making a note. Okay, let's take a look at the form.
I remember we walked back there. Yeah, back there.
I have like 40 photos and I don't see any major roads in any of them. So
Definitely.
You could send me whatever photos you have.
There was parking at the old early times.
The old part.
restaurant.
It was a restaurant that's smaller, they had a foundation still there.
Oh, interesting.
Bring your driver. Golf ball.
Okay, let's just take a look at the form real quick. I just want to make sure procedurally that I get all the information I need. So we got all this stuff, extended type of activity. I plan to reference the crossing primarily in this instance, and then possible work in a buffer zone. Seems like with the isolated wetlands, I'll mention them, but I don't know jurisdictionally where that will go.
But, I think we can, I would still put it in there,
Yeah,
but just make it clear that we don't know for certain whether there was jurisdiction or not.
okay, that makes sense. I can do that. Okay, going down.
Sorry.
In violation of issuing their approval. So there was not a previous file order, so none of this applies. Immediately cease and desist. Resource area alteration of development activity should be corrected. It seems that, is that something that we would request at this time, or restoration? And then the next option, so we can check off as many of these as we want or don't want. First one, property owner and his agents cease and desist activities. So sounding like, yes, we clicked that one. Resource area alterations resulting from said activity shall be corrected and the resource area returned to original condition.
Yeah, find out more about.
Yeah, I think we can't check that off yet, I don't think.
Yeah, a restoration plan be filed with the issuing authority, giving a date. I could put a really far out date and then say that will be informed by, you know, with the following, and we could say to be informed by further investigation, or
I think in the past, we put pretty close up dates.
we do.
So that, and then we can extend it. if we need to.
That's true.
I'm not sure we know exactly what the violation is yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a cease and desist at the moment.
Let's do check this off.
Okay.
Just so that I don't want to run into having to file another enforcement order because we didn't check out the right box. So let's check it off. And then I think, this would also, I think, cover the one before it, but make sure that we have seen and approved whatever's going to happen before that.
Okay, that makes
As far as
sense.
corrections go.
The next meeting scheduled for the 27th of this month, do we want to put the date as that, or the next meeting after that, which I believe is the 11th of July? can
When
figure out
can
what
we
it
get
is.
out there? Let's start there.
That's probably the easiest.
Sorry, what?
When can we get out there? Let's start there.
It's hard during the week. It's such a big property. Or is weekends a possibility?
Potentially, if you guys don't need me to be there, I know I would try to make it work that I could be there. I just have a bunch of random stuff coming up, but it's something. It was easy to schedule it with the property owner before. I think they'll be helpful again. I would have to, I don't know. I think we need their permission again to do the next site visit. So it's hard to say when exactly that would be, but I'll reach out to them tomorrow, obviously. To get it set. I don't know that they do.
We don't need to be present if they give permission.
Yeah.
I guess I would think that we ask them to come, try to do a site visit, ask them to come to our next meeting and then request a draft restoration plan for the following meeting. And then see if that's, see what happens.
Yeah.
So that would be July 11th. What we could do if we want is would not yet issue the enforcement order, but I can issue a letter saying, cease and desist, then issue the actual order when we have more information. That's another order of operations that's possible.
The letter carries the same weight.
It doesn't.
Enforcement order.
Yeah,
I
but
think we should, my vote would be to issue.
that makes sense.
Do we need to take a formal vote on that?
We will. Yep, you'll have to do that. So other things, it says completed attached notice of intent. I don't think that's necessarily applicable at this time. No further work shall be performed until public hearing has been held. I think not checking that either. And then I don't have a printed version of this yet, so I'll use the virtual signatures if that's all right.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, someone wants to make a motion.
A motion to issue enforcement order, a stop work order from 93 Northampton Street for possible violation.
I'll say.
Roll call vote. All those in favor? Patrick?
Aye.
Weeks?
Aye.
August? Aye. Carr?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, as far as availability from the commissioners.
Yeah, if you could, thank you.
I think Dan, Jay, and I are the ones who've been there, right?
Yes.
You've been there.
No, I'll be-
Okay. Jay, you're fairly flexible typically. What about you, Dan? I have nothing on Thursday. I could make Friday work. I could make Wednesday. I could make certain times on Wednesday work.
Thursday, anytime during the day could work.
I'm out east Thursday.
I just play Eastern as all week.
What about beginning of next week?
Oh, yeah, I'll keep in touch. Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Well, what about your
Yeah, next
homework?
one.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Getting to Eastern Mass by the time work starts.
4 a.m.
Usually
What time does sun come up?
before the sunrise.
The 14th, I'm oddly open on Tuesday the 14th.
That's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's not a good thing.
All right.
In the middle of the day is good, but it has to be like noontime or something like that.
I have two different calendars I'm trying to keep track of.
Oh, boy.
That's only on the one calendar that was based on, but 21st actually, following Tuesday, also doesn't look bad on that one calendar.
I'm free all day on that day.
This one doesn't look too bad.
It would just have to be the middle of the day, that's all.
I have something first thing in the morning, but after that,
I
I
could do
can make
11 to 3 or something.
Okay.
On the
That work for you?
21st.
Okay, Cassie,
11?
can you please reach out sometime between 11 and 3 on the 21st?
I can do that. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. So, whenever you're ready, if we can also take another item out of order for Bucky. He has patiently waited. I
What do you want to
appreciate
make that mistake again?
Okay. Yeah, seriously. Especially since Dan didn't even stay on the line. So to recap quickly, you're gonna draft the enforcement order.
Mhm.
We voted to issue it. You're gonna use our signatures.
Mhm.
You're gonna reach out to DEP. You're gonna find out if they can get any aerial or have other insight to help us. You're gonna schedule a site visit. We're requesting a restoration plan for the July 11 meeting and for them to attend June 27. Or whatever it was. I think it's the 27th.
it. It is, yep.
That's correct.
Did I miss anything? Okay. Great.
Okay,
What's Bucky's item?
it is item 8. S, 8S.
All right. 8S, the Easthampton Animal Hospital, 410 Main Street, stormwater permit only. I know nothing about this one. I wasn't part of it somehow.
So this was continued from the last meeting.
Right, I think I said that at the last meeting too.
Yes.
Yeah, so I know that much, but
Change the
Nothing
amount of impervious or something like that?
There's an increase in the amount of impervious area by 256 square feet. Bucky, I don't know if you want to give a quick overview.
I'm happy to. I'll attempt to share my screen. I'm not a Google Meet.
Let me make you a co-host. There you go. And then down at the bottom, you should have a square box with an arrow in it.
Yes, I
And-
have that
yep, and then-
anyway.
Okay. I don't know what it does.
Every system here.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to, can you see the plan first?
It's loading, but yes, yeah.
Okay. This was the plan for the project, and the contractors have marked it up for me a couple little times. So what I'm going to do is zoom into the back of the building here. And there were a couple of concrete pads proposed in the original building, the original design by the architects, and they came back and they said, well, turns out we need a lot more room than we thought for the equipment. There's more stuff to put outside because of some of the hospital equipment. And they also decided that they would like a little bit of room for expansion in the future. And they figured if they're going to build one concrete pad, they would just build it all at once here. So it's an 8x32 pad. It's 236 or 56 square feet that would be added to the impervious area for the project. And of course, I did the stormwater report, and I'm going to bring up a section from that. And the top table, there's a lot of numbers. I'll just walk you through, but the top table is what was in the original design with the original impervious area. For example, for the 2-year storm, the flow rate coming off would be 1.15 cubic feet per second. For the adjustment, by adding this 8x32 pad, we get 1.18 cubic feet per second. So it's a slightly higher discharge rate. But if you look at the original, 1.52 cubic feet per second, so we're still 22% below the required design here. Similarly, for the 10-year storm, we're still 10% below the required number, and the 100-year storm 6% below the required number, which is the same as the original surface area. So the reality is this it's less than 1.5% change to the overall impervious area. There was already plenty of wiggle room built into the design to begin with. And I'll stop sharing at that point, so we can go to any questions. Oh.
Were there, I don't recall why we pushed this off at particular. What
You responded to
was
the
it just
numbers.
done? The numbers?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fine to me.
Seems fine to Dan.
Doesn't seem like a big deal.
Is it okay if it's just in the minutes, or do we need a motion to?
You could say to approve a motion to approve it as a minor change, and then I would just send them a letter, so there's a record.
Sure, I'll make a motion that we approve as a minor change.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Fletcher? Aye. Weeks?
Aye.
August? Aye. Carr?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much for your patience.
Yes, thanks, Bucky.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure. And this was, I think, the fastest meeting that I've ever been part of. So I do appreciate it. Straight to the point here, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, thank you. Okay, the next item I'd like to request out of order. This is item 7A, Echo West.
You got somebody waiting for this?
Yes, Jess Appel is here.
Just sign in. Great, okay, Ecclesville West Orchard Area Improvement.
So I talked about this in the last meeting. There is a new management plan that was presented. You guys had some questions about it, and I wasn't equipped to answer them, unfortunately. So Jess has agreed to kindly come and answer any questions you all have about it.
Thank you, Jess. So I know one of my questions was about the, I forgot what it was called in the original proposal, but the original proposal had a percentage of removal that was essentially guaranteed. And I don't see any of that kind of language. So I'm curious what are we expecting to get out of the end of this contract if it's fully executed? Can't you hear us? You're muted, Jess. I don't know if you know that. She may also not actually be there.
There we go. Sorry, I was working through some of the system requirements. Okay. Can you repeat that in a very brief, sorry, I'm on
Sure.
now.
So our original proposal, which is now a number of years old, had a percent removal guarantee at the end. And I don't see anything like that in this contract. So I'm wondering if you can speak to what your expectations are for success rate, what we should anticipate in terms of additional work after this, so that we have some sense of, since we have limited funding, where should we be looking to in the long term?
Sure. And most of our proposals should have that success criteria in that. So if you're not seeing that towards the end, I'm happy to add that in. I'm a little surprised it's not in there. Usually the way we draft things, depending on the species we're focusing on, it could be anywhere from 85 to 95% success criteria over a 3-year period. The goal being we want to get the plants, the invasives under control within 3 years, and then shift things into the stewardship realm, whether that be us training you or the town or whomever to take over management, or to come up with kind of an annual maintenance plan thereafter. If that kind of answers that in a nutshell.
That is great. So yeah, It's possible that I'm missing it, but I did not see it in this proposal. And if you're able to add that, that would be excellent.
Absolutely. Yeah, usually we have some kind of success criteria in there. Usually it'll say, between 2022 and 2025, we agree to hit 90% or whatever it is. It's a little lower for, say, knotweed, but yes, I'll add that in so that you have that.
Do you have the minutes, Cassie, to refresh us on what some of the other questions were?
Yeah.
There were a couple others.
Questions about the budget.
Yep, there was questions about the budget, which is not,
That was internal. So
yep, that's for us, and I'm still working on that, unfortunately. Let's see. You did have questions seemingly about the cost comparison between the new plan and the previous plan. Success criteria. And then, yeah, that was it. There was a question, not at the last meeting, but previously, or maybe it was the last meeting, but no, I think it was before that, about the proposal to leave the cut material kind of around the islands that were created.
Yeah.
And Jess, you were saying the plan is to leave that cut material, or it could be mowed down, I guess, farther. But is there, yeah.
Yeah, because I know that you had expressed our concern about leaving the material on site. And so the follow-up thought to that was that if it was done correctly, it could be mowed and made to kind of mulched up and disappear in order to save money and stick to budget as opposed to hauling it out.
And that is for invasive material?
Yes. Yeah,
So
we wouldn't
what-
be cutting anything that was not invasive.
So what, remind me which, we have bittersweet here. I don't know, multiflora might be fine to chop up, I'm not sure, but bittersweet, if it had any seeds, we certainly wouldn't want to be leaving on site. Why would you be comfortable leaving that material or chopping it up on site?
Any of the bittersweet that's growing there now is low because the mow has already happened. There are some climbing vines in the trees that may bear fruit, but not all that fruit's going to be successful. Trying to haul it out off the site, you're more likely to spread those seeds by removing it and moving it off site than you are just kind of letting it be, because they're not all going to germinate. Usually when we can suggest it or encourage it, the best management practice for any invasives is to leave it where it lies and not try to move things around too much. That said, there's not a whole lot of mature climbing vines left at that site. Most of it has been cut at this point. If that kind of helps to visualize it.
Fall and just manage what starts to come up in the spring.
Yeah, I guess,
So, normally we want people to take it off the site.
yeah. I guess if you're comfortable with that and you're owning the success criteria and that's the method that you feel will get us there, then I'm fine with that.
That's what we would usually suggest for most kind of projects with these conditions. Bittersweet is not one we haul out very often. There's certain situations where we'll chip and remove, big woody shrubby debris, but not usually bittersweet vines because they're very unwieldy. They're hard, you can't chip them. They're hard to, bag up and remove, and most places won't take them. So usually they're left on site.
We try it.
Okay.
I'm happy to think of creative solutions. We were also trying to stick within the budget that I know got funded without adding extra cost to that. So if it's something that you feel very strongly about and want to pursue, we can certainly come up with some additional options if, more grant money or what have you is pursued for that task. It's just not included in the budget right now, currently.
Anyone else have an opinion?
Yeah, just do it,
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah.
Spring.
let's go with it.
Okay.
Goes away, but
Goes away.
trying to manage fire out there with no resources is going to be difficult.
Anything else, Kelsey, that was in our notes?
I'm just checking my notes. I've been in discussions with Jeff and Jamie Webb about possible future projects too, because that was something that had been discussed at a past meeting him briefly, what we could do. Definitely the first step for any future project would be approving a management plan and getting that underway. And then, yeah, hopefully that can lead to some kind of future project, maybe like a trail, an accessible trail, an edible trail, something like that. But this is certainly the first step. And if you guys don't have any other questions, I don't believe that I do either, specifically for the invasive plan.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys need a vote to approve it. I guess that it couldn't hurt if you're, I don't know.
Well, she's gonna give us an amendment.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And what is our timeline for the next piece of this work, ideally?
At this point, we should revisit that a little. I think we're still okay in terms of field growth. But if we get any later, any type of foliar should wait. The cut stem work we can do, we're gonna have to wait until July at this point, because as you are all familiar with, we're trying to get through our June 30th deadlines currently. So as long as we get on site, I haven't driven there recently, but as long as the field conditions, they're not too high, we can still go ahead as proposed. We would just have to get on site very soon.
For the cut stem treatment?
Mostly for the foliar. I'm more concerned about getting the foliar done before things grow in too much. The cut stem work could happen at any point, you know, through late fall and be completely effective.
Okay, but you're saying that's not going to be before July anyways?
Correct, yep.
Okay, so if you were to give us the amended proposal and we signed off on it at our next meeting on the 27th, does that work on your timeline to get you out there?
It should, yes.
Okay.
And I'll try to drive by between now and then to make sure things aren't too high. That's, like I said, my only concern, because we want it to be effective, so we want the visibility to be good.
Sounds good. Okay.
I want to see all the new baby seedlings.
I guess I would advocate for just not even waiting for the next meeting if we get an updated proposal with, you know, on this criteria in it, then.
Yeah, that's it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Whoever has to authorize it, authorize it.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
That works for me. Does that work for everybody? Okay. So Cassie will review, make sure the new criteria are in there and go ahead and authorize.
Sweet.
And Cassie, does that require any other coordination on the city side? Is it just, can you authorize it?
I believe I can authorize it. We spoke to,
Because we have the funds, right?
yeah, we've already gotten that from the CPA, and I spoke with Jamie Webb about it, and they don't need an update yet at this time, is my understanding. So, yeah, I think it should be okay.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Jess.
Oh, thank you. It's appreciated. I'll get you that as soon as I can.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks.
Right, are we back to order?
We are, and we left off at,
Enforcement actions.
yeah.
Any other notes on enforcement actions?
Yes. So only for item 6C, which is 476 East Street.
Yep.
I've been in communications with the property owner, Gretchen, and so she actually already took a bunch of actions. And the enforcement order, you know, described having a certain criteria that needed to be met, and to come back or, you know, have this plan by this meeting. And she actually took a number of the actions already. So basically I got an email from her that said the following: we planted 5 maple trees, 2 oaks, and 2 pussy willows. Due to the inventory and prohibitive costs, the size of the trees isn't quite as large as the enforcement order states, which was at the time was 1 inch for the trees to be. Let's see, as the order states, but we're trying our best. Hopefully in combination with the pines that were previously planted last fall, things will get back to its naturalized state shortly. Trying to think what else. I can show you the original order if you'd like to see that. Or if there's more that y'all want to happen there. Big thing was just no more mowing in that area for sure, and then replacing the trees that had been, the mature trees that had been cut.
Do we know how big the ones that were put in are?
No, I don't know. I can ask her.
We can find out,
Yeah.
so we know. And we had some survival criteria in there, I believe, didn't we?
Yeah, so the other part of it was a description of, there's gonna be monitoring for 3 years, coordination with me, just me going out checking every 3 years. And then some description of a plan of how to maintain them to survive for 2 years. Or maybe it's 2 seasons, it's the same, 2 years. So yeah, that I have not yet received. Okay, cool.
Do you need to go out and see if they get them?
I think I will do that for sure, yeah. I just haven't done it yet.
You had on here that has to be close to the edge where the other ones were cut.
Yep, it should be close to as close as possible where the mature trees were cut. And I'll just do a site visit to see if that's the case, or closer to the water, whichever one was better. Okay, well, I can get that information for the next meeting.
Great. I think we've covered everything on open space update.
I actually have an update for Lathrop.
Okay.
They finished the conservation restriction like a week ago. So it's in place, it's recorded. I saw it was recorded. So I don't know if we need any more updates, if I can take that off the agenda or if there's more that you want to see about that.
So did that end up happening strictly through the planning board?
I don't know, because it would have been through, basically the CR has to have 2 people on it, and it's usually the owner and then either the city or a private land management service like Kestrel Land Trust or something like that. So I don't know, yeah.
The question, I think why this was on there was that there was questions about what it should look like and whether it was going to be improved, because it was, as I recall, decades overdue.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll get more details.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
If it's already recorded, it doesn't really.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I'll leave it on there for next meeting though.
Okay. Compliance updates?
Yes, I do have some. So let me just make a note real quick. Okay, so compliance updates.
Are you receiving reports from everyone that you should be? I've had some rain events.
Yeah, we have had some rain events, but I've been getting that report, so.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so the main compliance update that I have is for the 99 Mount Tom Avenue, also known as the Cherry Street project.
I need to recuse for that one. So
Yep.
I'll just step out.
Okay, sorry, this is a number, I apologize. It's 8Q, that's correct, 8Q. So yeah, just an update. So there was, I'm gonna show you the plan here in a second, but basically one thing that was not included in the plan and is now on the plan, but was always intended on the plan is a pipe that is getting relined, an existing pipe that is going to be relined. So basically they're not going to remove the pipe in any way, on any ground disturbance, but they're going to put in a new lining. So basically the way it was described to me, because they're coming up to the pre-construction requirements, they've been submitting them, and one of the requirements is for them to submit the final construction plans so that I can check to make sure everything matches up with what was permitted. And one thing, so now they're showing this pipe there that wasn't there before when they got their permit. So let's see. There is additional water and sewer line replacement work that was not shown on the permitting plans. The work will occur in the buffer zone within the city's easement on 67 Cherry Street and within the existing limit of disturbance. This effort includes lining the sewer trunk line that runs northward through Riverfront to Mount Tom Avenue. The sewer pipe will be accessed only within the existing limit of disturbance for the lining work, and there would be no additional ground disturbance in Riverfront area. All to say, there is no change to impacts. Now I'll show you the plan quick, but I did wanted to have it on the record that this change has happened, and it looks like they're like putting in a whole new pipe, but that's not the
Just
case
do
as
the
I
line.
understand it. That's correct. So. What's that, sorry?
What do they line it with?
I'm not sure.
And why?
Everything, the whole purpose of the whole project at least is to kind of, there's a failing outfall that goes into the Brickyard Brook area. So that whole area is getting restored and the slopes are getting restored. And then all along Cherry Street, extending outside of our jurisdiction, they're putting in all this green infrastructure for stormwater management. And so I'm assuming that the lining will have something to do with making sure that the existing structures are working well into the future. I don't know if anyone else has any experience with what they might be lining it for. I can't say explicitly.
Yeah, if it's a sewer pipe, they're probably putting in like a plastic cured in place lining. So they send it down and then they cure it and cut out the surface connections. And it's because they're trying to stop inflow of groundwater into the sewer pipe, because then that groundwater gets sent to the wastewater treatment plant and it like increases the amount of water they have to deal with. So the sewer pipe is all the joints degrade and it starts to go out. So that's my guess as to what it is.
Okay, let me see if I can find it on here. Let me share my
Yeah,
screen.
to me, this seems like a non-issue. It's nice that they told us.
Yeah, they've been on top of it for pretty much everything, which is nice.
Yep.
But yeah, I just figured it's good to, we've done it for other big projects like this too. Then what I can do, or the commission could do, is vote to approve this as a minor change, and then I'll send a letter, and then there's something in the file that just notes like, hey, if someone ever notices this discrepancy, here's why, and it was checked. And I'm trying to see where it is. See, the plans are really big because it shows all the street and the Cherry Street. I think it's here, so this is the end of the existing road, limited disturbance indicated by those little LODs. And then this is the pipe that's getting relined. And I think if you were to look at the original plans, this line would not be there.
Okay.
I think there's any call outs. But you can see, yeah, it goes into the riverfront area and the buffer zone and all that good stuff.
It's all done underground inside the pipe.
Correct.
Disturbance.
Yep, correct.
To vote or?
Yeah, let's do a motion that's a minor change. Someone make that motion.
Did you have another question? Or I thought I
I
heard
didn't
somebody.
know.
Okay, I thought I heard somebody.
There's, wondering if there's, I don't know anything about this, so,
I know.
but, like, putting plastic in the ground is gonna break down and then more plastic in the ground. Biodegradable plastic.
Well, so it's gonna be encased in whatever the material the existing pipe is my understanding. So I understand, yeah, your concern.
Estrogen in the water. But probably not in our jurisdiction.
Right, so it's more our jurisdiction is what's happening in the buffer zone or in a resource area.
Right. So you're saying the motion is to make this a minor change?
Approve as a minor change.
Approve it as a minor change because there is no ground disturbance. So they're not digging up the pipe or replacing the pipe.
Yeah, and it is a big benefit because it keeps water out of the sewer that shouldn't be there. So it's less treatment, less energy use of the treatment plant and all that kind of thing.
I'll make that.
Make that motion?
I'll make the motion to approve this as a minor change.
Beautiful. Second, okay. Roll call votes. Commissioner Busa is recusing herself. Commissioner Patrick.
Aye.
Commissioner August.
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks. Commissioner Carr.
Aye.
Commissioner Whitmore. Aye. Motion carries.
Woohoo. Okay. I don't know where she went. Julie. She can come back.
Come back.
Fell asleep.
Something, the lights went off.
Oh, God.
All right.
Awesome. So we're still in compliance updates. Yeah. I believe that is it. So unless anyone has any questions, I'm ready for minutes, general business. There you go.
Folks have a chance to review the meeting minutes for May 23rd. Have a motion?
Motion to approve minutes for May 23rd.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Fletcher?
Aye.
Weeks?
Aye.
August? Aye. Barr?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
And Mill Pond.
Lower Mill Pond possible violation. So this was for the new fountains that got put in at the, in Lower Mill Pond. They were placed by the owners of the Mills complex. I had spoken to him about this before.
Yes, it's on a site visit once, whether it was an issue, and we told him, no, because anything that floats in the past is not an issue.
Exactly. He was able to confirm to me that the fountains themselves are not embedded in the ground in any other way. They're anchored with regular moorings. They'll be removed every winter time. So they can't be embedded in the ground. They have to be able to be removed. In the process of installation, there was some ground disturbance to the slope there that I noted in that certificate of compliance review, which it was described to me as being caused by the boats that were going into the water. And he said that he had, restabilized the area, but then it had been disturbed again, possibly by turtles. Maybe snapping turtles. They've seen snapping turtles there before. So, but then, I told him that it was, disturbed, and he, that same day, was able to go out there and put the hay down, or the straw down, excuse me, and just a new wattle along the bottom. That area is getting treated for invasive management as well. So,
Where was he launching from?
it's right on the, I can show you the picture if you like. Yeah, it's just that slope right off of Ferry Street.
Up and down the slope, so.
Like, yeah, it's a pretty
Do
steep
you
slope.
have concerns about the level of disturbance, Cassie?
I don't.
I
Is
looked at it today,
there,
it wasn't a real mess or anything.
yeah. Is there an alternate plan that they might be able to come up with for the future for going in and out?
I can ask.
Since this is going to be presumably a multi-times a year situation.
Yeah, I can ask about that. I
There's a
mean,
boat ramp around the corner.
There is.
Oh, is there?
They could have just gone from there and not had to. hike up and
where's
down.
that at? Is that at the pump house?
It's,
The old pump house?
yeah, right near the pump house.
Yeah.
Before you get to the pump house, there's a right boat ramp.
Oh. Well, I can ask you
Yeah,
about
so-
that.
I thought that's who you meant. I was.
Yeah, that's why I was
There's a
asking.
violation. when
Why
it's
wouldn't they use the boat ramp?
Yeah, I don't,
Down the hill,
Oh,
and it's hills at a
okay.
45-degree
I
angle.
don't think we need to worry about the current situation, but it'd be good to avoid it in the future
Right.
by coming up with a better plan.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Just out of curiosity, how's the power get to those fountains?
I didn't know that.
That was the other question, and I had asked, like, how would they be connected? And he said the connections are already in place. They just needed to be connected to.
I think
Power to water?
40D batteries each.
No, they're pretty powerful.
Connections are in place. Where?
So, I didn't see any wires crossing the street or coming up the bank or anything like that, so I don't know. To go back and look at the drawings and see something on the drawings, but
Yeah,
yes,
sounds curious.
How do you get
an
electricity?
underwater port is not an easy thing to do.
The little slope.
No, there's nothing.
Yeah, let's take one. Take one and turn some solar panel.
Well, do we think there is anything further to explore there?
Yeah.
No,
We're curious
Yeah.
just
how he's doing.
curiosity. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Good enough for tonight. We already talked extensively, I can say in excess, about 93 Northampton. I think that's it.
Yeah, there's nothing for future hybrid meetings except now we're using this owl. So that's exciting, but unless if anyone has questions about it, I can let y'all know about it, but it
Owl?
seems like it's working so far. Yeah, it actually hoots when you turn it on. I'm not even joking. I'm not
Does
even joking.
this one doesn't seem to follow us.
It can do that.
That way.
Yeah, I have it set up that it's trained on to show all of you.
I think that's for the best.
Yeah, I can have it so that it is quickly, and it will follow you around the room. It's like
That's
crazy.
disturbing.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And then it has,
Distracting, it's distracting.
yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
Maybe
Great.
not disturbing, but
Anything further? We have a motion to adjourn on the table and a second. All those in favor, roll call vote. Budget.
Aye.
Weeks.
Aye.
August. Carr.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Whittemore.
Aye.
Motion carries. It is 8:26 and we are closing the June 13th meeting of the Conservation Commission. Our next meeting is June 27 at 6 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
How did you make the motion, Hal, or was it Dan?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Ending the meeting.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.